It somehow got even better for the San Jose Sharks as Mike Grier pulls off another phenomenal move. And this has massive implications for the Sharks' future as they trade away fan favorite Mackenzie Blackwood, but for a haul that has the fans quite excited as Georgiev now gets a low pressure environment and they get a new NHL player coming over from the KHL in Kovalenko, who has shown some massive promise. It's not just about the trade, it's about the trend that this sets for the Sharks going forward. Not to mention Celebrini's rise to the top of the Calder race. There's a lot we got to break down about the San Jose Sharks on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into the video, quick reminder, as always, guys, 90% of you watching are not subscribed. We got daily NHL content covering all your favorite teams. Hitting the subscribe button down below is completely free. We're on the road to 8,000 subscribers. We'd love to hit that before the new year. So if you like what we do here, you want daily NHL content, hit the button down below. It'd mean the world to us. Mark, we got to talk about what's going on in San Jose. As if we look at this trade today, I know we've all heard about the trade, but there's more to it than this, and we're going to dive deeper. The Avalanche acquired Mackenzie Blackwood, Giovanni Smith, and a 2027 fifth for Georgiev, Nikolai Kovalenko, a second, and a fifth. Now, the first thing we got to talk about is Mackenzie Blackwood because of how good he has been this year. But Mark, the big thing with Blackwood is that he was doing some amazing stuff for a San Jose Sharks team that was really near the bottom of the standing. So they've won some games recently in large part because of him. In this low pressure environment, he managed to up his trade value. And even Mike Grier has a bit of a connection to him. And they managed to up his trade value, send him off for a big haul coming back.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is that we've seen Grier go out and speak on how much he respected Blackwood. He was a part of the team with the New Jersey Devils when Blackwood was there as well. Mike Grier, and as you can see on the screen, said that he loved the kid. You can read this, and Mike Grier really went into how much he respected and loved Blackwood. But looking at Blackwood, the biggest thing with this is they went out and acquired him, and he was a low risk, high reward, and the high reward really paid off. He really turned his career around on the San Jose Sharks, coming in fielding, I think it was a 910 save percentage on the Sharks team that's not a true strong contender. He's going to the Avalanche for quite a haul, and I think Grier did a great job. Grier really went into how this was a trade that they couldn't refuse. Sometimes you get a call and an offer you feel like you can't refuse, and it's going to help continue this build and set you up for the future. You had to kind of take it. Now, as much as the fans love Mackenzie Blackwood, you do get a nice return for a guy that you didn't give up much for, and we're going to get into how this really feels like another situation with Georgiev. But looking at this, Josh, do you think they came out as bandits with this trade?
It's hard to say bandits. I mean, we'll have to see how the future plays out, but the immediate reaction is like, in terms of pure value for players, like that's the kind of price you have to pay for a goaltender who's performing the way Mackenzie Blackwood is. So, like, if it wasn't the Sharks, maybe you'd be like, okay, fair enough. But when you're San Jose, these kind of trades, it sets a precedent, right? It's something Mike Grier has done very well. It's the kind of trade that you always love to make when you're in the middle of a rebuild, when you can build up a guy who was not wanted by other teams because you have this unique opportunity to give him more opportunity than anyone else does, pump him up, get his value up, and then send him off because you know he's not a big part of your future, and you get back assets that will help you in the future. Georgiev, not so much. He's having a really, really, really bad year. You could argue he's the worst starting goalie in the NHL this season. I don't think anyone would really argue against that. But the big thing coming back for me is Kovalenko and the second round pick. Giovanni Smith, he was like a outsider guy getting scratched here and there, whatever. But Kovalenko coming back, I know he only has 4 goals, 4 assists in 28 games, and he is 25 years old. He's not a rookie, but he's on that entry-level contract, so there's a ton of flexibility with him. This is a guy that had 35 points in 42 KHL games just last season, 54 points in 56 games the year before that. He struggled a little bit to acclimate to the NHL environment, but Mark, as we've seen with some other guys on San Jose, they've been able to elevate some of their other, I don't know if I want to say unknown guys, but younger guys like an Eklund, right? Who's the other one? Zetterlund, right? These guys who can just come up, start to produce, and I think Kovalenko is getting put in the perfect spot to do this and be a part of the Sharks' short-term or maybe even long-term future as they trade away a guy that they know isn't that. And that's why I think this is so good.
And I mean, looking at, like you said, 25 years old, a lot of people say, hey, this might be getting old, but you're not really hitting your prime until your late 30s, or sorry, late 20s into your early 30s. So he does have time to grow with the San Jose Sharks team. Like you said, he's on a 1-year deal. He's an RFA at the end of this deal on his entry-level contract. So it's a low risk, high reward with this guy that could grow with the team, maybe find a spot in the middle 6 or top 6 for the Sharks team. And as much as you want as many prospects, young guys, everything in between, you do need some guys to grow and some older players and vets, even though 25 is not that old. You need people to grow with the team. And this is
Mhm.
the perfect situation for it, as he could really turn his game around. Now, going to Georgiev, I know, yes, we did talk about it. And like you said, he is debatably one of the worst starting goaltenders in the NHL. But coming into this new environment, somewhere where he can kind of let loose, play with the Sharks team, kind of like Mackenzie Blackwood did, I think there's a possibility that a team gets desperate enough going into trade deadline if they're out a backup goaltender, if they're out a starting goaltender. We see a team like the Carolina Hurricanes struggling to keep goalies healthy. If they go into the postseason or trade deadline, I should say, without someone like Freddie Anderson, maybe they want to go out and pick up someone like Georgiev just to have someone a little older be around this team. Their defense is pretty solidified over there. Maybe Georgiev does shine there. We've seen him play well for the Avs last season. So as much as Georgiev isn't great, and that's the best way to say it for lack of better words, there is a possibility where he does come in, get a bit of trade value at trade deadline. At the very worst, they did retain 14% of his salary coming to the Sharks. They can retain more if they trade him. If not, it's a 1-year deal and it's kind of a wash. But Josh, looking at this, do you think Georgiev's just kind of going to play it out with the Sharks this year, or do you think maybe they go and look at Askarov as the backup or starting goaltender?
Hard to say. I mean, if we look at their goalies so far this season, I mean, it's been Blackwood, it's been Vanacek, and it's been Askarov, who's only played the 2 games but has looked fairly solid in them. And Blackwood was their go-to guy for sure. Vanacek not doing amazing, but he's a backup. It is what it is. But I think you made a good point. Like whether or not they do move on from Georgiev this season, I don't think it really matters. I don't think it matters if he even plays. Like that's where this goes another layer deep, right? You bring Georgiev into a low pressure environment where you can just say, hey, try and build yourself back up like they did with Blackwood. Like Blackwood was in a similar position. He was borderline unplayable just a few years ago. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but he was not looking great. He really flourished in San Jose. Now, could Georgiev do the same? Sure, he could, and then maybe get flipped again to another team. Could he still be horrible and not earn any playing time? Also possible. But that's the beauty of what San Jose has going is they have Georgiev, they have Vanacek, and they also have Askarov. They can move on from either of those veteran goalies and move them wherever they need to move them, or cut him if they need to. I don't know. There's a bunch of options they can do. So the flexibility to this just adds a whole nother layer as to why this is so good for Mike Grier and the team, because every single move seems to have a bigger idea behind it. But if I just want to translate that to something else with this team, because setting them up for the future, getting assets that are going to help them longer term, whether it's for a trade for more future assets down the line or to open up some more room for a prospect, like maybe we're seeing with Askarov, not sure. Right now, they're looking towards the future, and what better person to focus in on? I want to just take a minute at the end of this video to just talk quickly about Macklin Celebrini, because this guy, he missed a bit of the season, but he has jolted himself. I think Michkov's still the favorite to win the Calder, or Leighton Hudson's up there, but Celebrini, if I had to put money on it today, I think it would probably be him. And he said it's obviously nice, but I think the bigger thing is we're winning some games and we're scoring a lot of goals as a team. Celebrini said it's not one guy or a couple guys. I feel like we're getting it from our defensemen. We're getting it all throughout our lineup. It's nice to have that camaraderie and that chemistry throughout the lineup, which is really, really good to hear. And that's what makes a good team as well, Mark. When you have these guys have chemistry with each other, when you have a GM that's clearly looking towards the long-term future of your team, even if it means giving up a guy that a lot of fans and probably a lot of players like now, bring in some extra scoring and a guy like Kovalenko, bring in a guy like Georgiev, who, despite the bad season, has an okay track record. You know you have the option for Askarov in the future. I think it really gets in the good graces of players to know that the entire organization is looking out for them.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Celebrini, this is a kid. I shouldn't even say guy. He's still 18 years old. Celebrini is going to put the NHL on watch, and I don't think he gets enough credit around the league. Yes, he won the Rookie of the Month for November, but Celebrini has been doing things that a lot of rookies haven't been. He leads all first overall picks with faceoff percentage over the past 20, 30 years, whenever they start tracking it. He's been great defensively, and offensively, he's came in putting up points after coming back from injury, having 8 goals, 7 assists for 15 points. I believe he was also the third youngest player to record his first overtime goal behind Jordan Stahl and Sidney Crosby, which is great company to be behind because both do have Stanley Cups. But looking at Celebrini, I do think this kid's future is just bright and everything in between. And it's going to be exciting to see how he goes. And I'd be willing to put money on him winning the Calder.
Yeah, I would do it too. I think Mike Grier is doing everything you need him to do. I think Sharks fans are hyped. We're hyped. We're not even Sharks fans, but I think we're kind of becoming and watching this team grow. But let us know your thoughts down below on this trade, on the future of the Sharks, and the bigger implications behind every single move Mike Grier makes. We'd love to hear from you. But that'll do it for this episode of Hat Trick HQ. If you enjoyed, leave a subscribe down below. Like we said, it's completely free. If you made it to this point in the video and you haven't hit the button, I think we earned it at this point. So if you could hit it, it'd mean a lot to us. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Mark Pye. We'll catch you in the next one.